What is your relationship with time? Are you wired and tired, stressed and overwhelmed, busy and going nowhere? Or just want to scale your business? Welcome to Take Back Time with your host, Penny Zenker. Penny focuses on books, strategies, tools, and tips to help you work smarter and approach your time more strategically. As a result, you can have more energy, focus, and get more done in less time. Be more efficient and effective. Get ready to take back time.
Hello, and welcome to Take Back Time. My name is Penny Zenker, and I'm your host. And I am excited when I bring amazing people with great tips and tricks to help you to take back time. And today is no exception. So I'm super excited today to have Elizabeth Saunders with us. She is the founder and CEO of Real Life E, a time coaching company that empowers individuals who feel guilty, overwhelmed, and frustrated to feel peaceful, confident, and accomplished. She was named one of the world's top 30 time management professionals. McGraw-Hill published her first book, The 3 Secrets to Effective Time Investment and How to Achieve More Success with Less Stress. Harvard Business Review published her second book, How to Invest Your Time Like Money. And Faith Words published her third book, Divine Time Management. Elizabeth contributes to blogs like Harvard Business Review, Forbes, Fast Company, and has appeared on CBS, ABC, NBC, and Fox News. So you can see why I'm excited to have her here. Welcome, Elizabeth.
Well, thank you. I'm delighted to be here.
So the way I'd love to start out today is we actually had this interview before, so we're kind of doing it again since our technology didn't work. And I wanted to share the story of what happened when we first met, that actually I had messed up something with the schedule and was late to our interview. And I think it's important. People see us, hey, you're the time management people, and they're constantly struggling with their own idea of perfection, right? And so I wanted to talk about the fact that we're not perfect. And what do we do when something like that happens, right? How do we accept it and let it go and not expect perfection from ourselves? So when I was late to our call, right, I owned it and said, hey, look, I'm really sorry. And I apologize for being late. And I also recognized for myself what emotion was coming up. And what was the thought on your side, right? Were you expecting perfection from me, or how did you help the situation in terms of the we're not perfect and letting things go?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So wonderful. Yeah. So when the situation we were in the first time we did the recording was I had dialed in, and it was my first time getting to know you. You'd asked to do the podcast, and
Great first impression, right?
Yeah. Well, it's fun. I actually meet new people all the time. So I'm used to rolling with things. And I'm a time management coach, but I really don't expect perfection of people. I mean, I totally understand things happen, meetings run long, it's all good. So I would say for about the first 5 minutes or so when I was waiting, I was like, oh, she's probably just wrapping something up. And then once I hit about the 5 to 10 minute mark, the thoughts that go through my head, particularly when I don't know someone, are like, are they coming? What's happening? So I had sent you an email to just say, hey, and I forwarded the confirmation of our time and said, are we still on? I'm waiting, but don't know if we need to reschedule. And you emailed back right away and you were like, oh, I apologize about the schedule. And then the timing worked out perfect because I was just about to hop off and you hopped on, and it all worked out in terms of us meeting up. And I think in regards to the lessons learned, and for anyone listening to this, first of all, Penny did a great job of just owning it, of saying, this is what I did, this is what happened. I tend to be very understanding about the only time it's hard on me is when people don't even apologize. Like they don't even acknowledge it. And one little tip I'll share that I actually unpacked with one of my coaching clients in regards to apologies and being able to own what you did is that people that have an overdeveloped sense of guilt often struggle to apologize as much as people who have no guilt at all. So if you just pulverize yourself and think you're a horrible person if you did something wrong, a lot of times you won't apologize because that just seems like admitting that you're a terrible, horrible failure.
Oh my God. And then that makes it worse.
That makes it worse because that makes other people think, wow, you not only stood me up or were late, but you're a jerk. So you come across horrible versus someone that is in the center. So recognizes that no one's perfect. Sometimes we make mistakes. It doesn't make me a horrible person. It doesn't make me horrible at time management. It's just human. You can own it. You can just say, I'm sorry, that mea culpa, my fault, and let's move on. And then as the person receiving that, it's our responsibility to accept the apology if we're willing to do that, which is usually a good idea, and then move on. Like, we don't need to make them pay for it or keep bringing it up. Just like, okay, it is what it is, and move on to the next thing. And so when you're in a situation like that, you're not a horrible, terrible person. You're human. It happens to everyone. You can learn from it, but it's good to apologize and then everyone move on because it's not worth dwelling on.
Yeah, it's really interesting that the tip that you gave, right? That people who have this like over sense of guilt would actually not apologize because they're like, it's like an avoidance, right? It's like a procrastination of ownership.
Yeah,
And
it's a deep shame.
And it's interesting because we're so human, right? And so if we don't really check in and be really aware and conscious of our reactions and our responses and what's going on, we can easily like self-sabotage ourselves like that. Like certainly nobody does that on purpose.
Yeah, no, it's not actually on purpose. What I noticed when I was unpacking it with one of my coaching clients in regards to, it was actually procrastination around email. So there was an email from someone, it was a professional email, that it actually like what was really important to him, but he had procrastinated on responding to because he wasn't quite sure how to respond. And then that just made him feel worse because he was like, I wasn't sure how to respond. And then it's been like 2 weeks and I really should have responded and they're following up with me. So like he was avoiding it more. And we actually worked together on drafting the email. And when he first drafted the email in response to this message he'd been procrastinating on, he didn't even say he was sorry. And he didn't even voice that he was interested in still collaborating and working with this other person. And I was like, hey, man, like if you want to have any sort of professional relationship last, like you can't just blow this off and act like you didn't do something wrong. And you better be very explicit that you want an ongoing relationship because the way you acted there, you basically ignored them. They're going to assume that you don't want to work together ever. So we worked on redoing the email and he ended up apologizing, just like, I'm sorry for my lack of follow through, explaining why he had a lack of follow through because of some busy projects at work, complimenting the person on their follow up skills, and then ending it with saying, I'd love to continue the discussion and I promise to be more responsive. And so he did that and he felt really good about it and they were very understanding. But it was fascinating because his initial gut impulse was to not apologize and to not like put himself out there because he felt so horribly bad about how he had avoided that email before.
Yeah. And what I like that I heard you said was he followed it up with a commitment of how he's going to show up in the future, right? Because that's part of ownership too, right? Is people, like you said, nobody's perfect. And it's so much easier to accept when somebody also makes that commitment to say, you can count on me in the future, right? So this was a one-time, it's not a regular thing.
Right, exactly. Like one of my mottos, especially when I was starting my first business, I've been doing time management coaching for 10 years. But prior to that, I was in magazine journalism and I started at a very young age. And one of my mottos was do your best, make it right, learn for next time.
Absolutely.
So like do your best to be on time, do your best to deliver on time, make it right. If you screw up, like apologize, do what you can to make it happen, and then learn for next time. So you better make a note of like, I need to work on this earlier, or I need to remember this detail or ask this question so that it gets better. And I think that as long as you're in that place of humility and openness to growth with whether it's with your time management or tasks, that people do really appreciate it and we can all learn and support and grow together.
Absolutely. One last thing and then we'll move on is when I kind of unpack how I deal with that and how I let go of things is I have to recognize what emotion is coming up for me. And sometimes it helps you to make a connection with somebody. So like I said, I'm embarrassed, or I try to acknowledge what that emotion is and just kind of say, okay, that's fine. And then kind of like meditation, you can let that then roll off and appreciate that that's what you felt. And can also connect you with people because maybe they can remember an experience. It doesn't have to only be from being late for something. It can be anything. Like you said, a procrastination of an email or anything. It's just acknowledging what emotionally was going on that might have been in the way as well. I think people are really receptive to that too, because it connects you emotionally to them.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it allows you to be gracious with others because we all make mistakes. So I am grateful when it's not like I go around trying to be late for things all the time or forget things all the time. It doesn't happen often, but every once in a while it does. And I'm grateful because it just keeps you humble and keeps you from being judgmental of other people and being like, well, I have my act together. Why can't you? It's like we all need grace. We all need forgiveness to both give it and receive it. And it's okay not to be perfect. It's more fun that way.
Absolutely. We have to love ourselves for our imperfections.
Yes.
As a matter of fact. So I always say that progress is perfect. So going along with what you said earlier, that motto. So as long as we are making progress and we are learning and we're being the best version of ourselves, then that's perfect.
Absolutely.
So is there anything else that you want to share around letting go? Because I think that is an important part of time management strategies, is letting go of what you can't get to, of mistakes and
yeah, for sure. So I have had the privilege of starting to write for the New York Times recently, and I've had a couple of articles that have already come out, and I have an article that will be coming out in the future. I don't know exactly when.
Congratulations.
But thank you. Yeah. And it's on time management regret. And one of the reasons I felt very passionate about writing the article was that I see so many people that just get stuck, where they feel so badly about the mistakes they've made in the past that they are just have such a strong approach avoidance that they don't move forward, whether it's a project that they've been meaning to do, or whether it's maybe getting their hours more in order at work or setting boundaries or whatever it is. Like they just feel so badly about the past that they don't take the action they could now to move forward. And so I just really want to encourage people in regards to their time management that the only way out is through. Like the only way you're going to really feel better is when you open those emails that freak you out and reply, or when you look at that project that you should have gotten done months ago and you haven't, and you start doing something on it. So I know it's scary. I know it makes you feel bad in the short term, but long term, that's really what's going to lead to the life that you want to live.
I love that. The only way out is through. I really like that. And that's important, really important for people to take away from today. So that's a really great extra tip there that on top of that point. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Distractions are the enemy of productivity. Go to distractionquiz.com and find out your distraction profile. Are you a time zombie or a hamster? Take this free distraction quiz today to rate your ability to focus on what keeps you from being a wizard. Go to distractionquiz.com.
So let's shift to some other challenges that you see most coming up with time management. What do you see is one of the biggest challenges that people face that we can share today, some tips around?
Sure. So I would say one of the biggest challenges people face is just overwhelm. And that's overwhelm in a number of different areas, but I think two key ones are overwhelm in terms of the number of different commitments that they have either personally or professionally, and then overwhelm in terms of the amount of input. So the amount of things coming at them through apps or email or any sort of technology thing. So I would say like those are two big areas, the overcommitment, overwhelming tasks, and the overwhelming input that are just huge for people. And I'd be so happy to talk through tips for that.
Sure. Let's pick them apart first. What about too many commitments?
Okay, so we'll start there. So in regards to too many commitments, I think that it's really, really important for people to acknowledge how much the world has changed and how much work has changed. So there always were some jobs where you had a lot of different things coming at you, but traditionally, like especially in the past, not too long ago, a lot more jobs were much clearer cut in terms of the hours that you worked, when you worked, where you worked, what you got done, what was expected in a day. And now with a lot more virtual workers, a lot more knowledge workers, a lot more technology, all of those boundaries are kind of decimated if you don't take time to set those boundaries. So the first thing I always recommend clients do in terms of task overwhelm is to start to get a sense of their weekly schedule. And if coaching clients work with me, then I put this together for them. If someone wants to do this on their own, in my second book, How to Invest Your Time Like Money, I talk through a process of going through this. But basically, what we start out is with just a macro level view of what are all those things that you have in your life, personally and professionally, that you're trying to fit into a week. So maybe it's recurring meetings, tasks that you need to do every week, exercise, time with your family, sleep, personal hobbies, whatever it is. Like, what are all those different things? And do they actually even fit? Because sometimes when people tell me all the things they want to do, particularly entrepreneurs, and I try to put them in a weekly schedule, they literally don't fit. Like, it's like, I don't know where you thought this was going, but it's definitely not going in your schedule because you're trying to fit.
Trying to do too much.
Hours.
Do you think people are trying to do too much because they're trying so hard to find that balance? And I say that with quotes, you can't see me.
Uh-huh.
Do you think that that's what's driving part of that? Like, why do people take on too many commitments? Try to pack too much in?
In my experience, it's because they're not aware of the time costs associated with them. So when, let's say you have like an hour-long meeting, well, an hour-long meeting is probably more like at least an hour and a half of your time between getting ready for the meeting, maybe walking to the meeting, wrap up. That's an hour and a half of your time. That's a chunk of time. Answering email, even if you're quite efficient, it's common for it to take an hour or two a day. That's a chunk of your time. Going to exercise, like I went swimming this morning, even if I'm swimming in the pool for, let's say, like 30 to 45 minutes, that's closer to hour and 15, hour and a half between getting ready, getting there, all that good stuff. And so people just aren't aware of the time cost associated with what they do. And then they're not looking at the fact that you have a time budget of, let's say, 8-9 hours in a day, maybe more, but well, for the sake of example, we'll say 8 or 9 hours. So when you have, let's say, 3-hour-long meetings, you're actually looking at about 4.5 hours of your day. And that leaves you, if we have an 8-hour day, with about 3.5 more hours. Then you have an hour or two for email. So that leaves you with about 1.5 hours. So you've got 1.5 hours left to try to get a project done or to get other tasks done. That's not that much time.
Right.
So you really need to be thinking carefully about what meetings you're saying yes to, what you're saying no to, how much time you're willing to spend on email, and really be thinking about what can I realistically do in a day with the amount of time that I've got.
So let me ask you, I'm a total believer in taking a step back and looking at the big picture like that. And that's the way I approach it for myself and also support others in that. What I hear a lot, and maybe you hear this too, is like for the typical office worker, they're like, yeah, but I don't have the ability to say no to these meetings, right? So they feel like they're always behind the 8 ball because they have their goals and everything, but they also have to work around all of the demands of the meetings that they're requested to be at. How do you support people in addressing that topic?
So there's a few different answers to that question, and part of it depends at what level of the organization that you're at. So I recognize that you do need to be sensitive to that factor. And depending on what the meetings are and where you're at in terms of the management chain, you can sometimes have more or less ability to say no. But with that being said, I'll share a few tips. So one is when and where you can, block out time for yourself in advance. So it's very common for my coaching clients to block out a couple of chunks of time. So maybe 2 afternoons a week where they have the time free for a couple of hours so that they can work on project work. Or maybe blocking their schedule so that meetings aren't scheduled before 9 a.m. So they've got the first hour, hour and a half a day to work on their own things. Or setting up rules, depending on the calendaring system. With some calendaring systems, you can set up rules to not have meetings at certain times a day or even have certain gaps between meetings, like give you a chance to go to the bathroom or that kind of stuff. So that's one thing. So basically, without you actually saying no, you're saying no because you're trying to just make your schedule busy or block it to give yourself space. So that's one
Absolutely.
way.
It's to take control where you can, right? It's so easy to fall into the excuse and the trap of saying, I don't have any control over this, right? That what you're saying is really important is take control of what you can, right? If you plan it ahead of time, then you have more control than you think.
Right. Well, and you're being proactive, so then people are working around your schedule. So it's not that you won't meet with them, but maybe you won't meet with them today, or maybe you won't even meet with them this week. And so what you're doing is you're controlling the flow of meetings and basically having the amount of time you're investing in meetings each week be the pace that works for you instead of just as quickly as possible. So that's one strategy. Another strategy is there are a lot of times, depending on the type of meeting and depending on your position, where you actually can say no, where there's a redundancy, like multiple people on your team, and it's not getting any additional value. And you can just ask for some update notes afterwards or do a quick update chat with your direct report to see what happened. Sometimes you can just have meetings be shorter. So instead of a meeting being 90 minutes long, can it get to 60? Instead of a meeting being 60 minutes long,
Parkinson's law, right?
Yeah, 30 or 45 minutes. And just really trying to compress things down to the shortest amount possible. Sometimes I schedule meetings as short as 15 minutes long because that's all they need. And that's what I'm willing to give.
And challenge the group to get it done in less time, right? So Parkinson's law tells us that we'll take whatever time is allotted. So a lot less time.
Right, exactly. And if you have people working for you and they can handle being at the meetings, consider just delegating some meetings, just saying, here are my thoughts during your one-on-one with them. Just say, here are my thoughts on what I want discussed. Please bring this to meeting, report back to me on what happened, and let it go. Because if you're not having time to do the strategic work, you're not providing the most value to the organization.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you for that. So let's talk just for a couple minutes on the overwhelm of the amount of information that's out there.
Absolutely. So so a great book written by one of my friends I highly recommend is Cal Newport just had Digital Minimalism come out. So check that out, everyone. It's not my book, but it's really good. And basically with the amount of input coming in, you have got to have super strong filters. Like it's absolutely essential that you don't keep up and don't care about a lot of stuff because otherwise your life will be sucked away by all this information input. So I'll just give a few examples from my life. You do not have to do things the way I do, but this is just what works for me.
Yeah.
So for example, with email, I do respond to email, particularly business email. That's very important. But I slow the flow. So my general policy is that I respond to email within 24 business hours. I know that doesn't work with everyone's professional work style, but by really trying to get through them once a day, I do keep up on email, but I also don't have email perpetually coming in and I don't get myself into these conversations where I'm on email all day long. So slowing down the flow, even if it's just checking 2 times a day or 3 times a day, maybe 4 at most, great strategy. Second strategy is get rid of notifications. Like there is so little need for you to have notifications. I mean, occasionally, okay, but most people email notifications, tons of phone notifications, just really not necessary and totally distracting you and keeping you from what you need to do.
Totally. Can I stop you there? Because
absolutely.
Like duh. So
yeah.
And I don't mean that in terms of you. Why are people still leaving their notifications on when they know that it's a constant distraction? Bing, bing, bing.
Yeah. Just habit, I think. Just not recognizing it's just a huge drain. And it's also an addiction. People have digital addiction.
It is. It's a digital addiction where you want to hear that somebody loves you because it's ringing, right? And the fact is that they don't love you and it's not even somebody that has anything to say. Right.
Yeah, exactly. So I recommend turning off as many notifications as possible. On my phone, the only notifications I get are for phone calls and texts. And if I really need to focus, I will turn my phone on silent and flip it over so I can't see it.
I do that too. Airplane mode. I don't even want them coming in, right?
Right.
Mode it.
And so just like recognize what you need. And then the third tip in regards to that is it's okay to be ignorant on lots of things. And I know that sounds bad. And some people are like, Elizabeth, I don't know about that. But let's be honest here. People survive for thousands of years without all the information on Facebook and Twitter and Reddit and all these things. I do have a Twitter account. I do have a Facebook account. I'm not like a social media hater, but I don't let these things run my life. You know, I primarily use them to post articles that I've written. Occasionally I'll scroll something, but we're talking like maybe 10 minutes a day at most on things like Facebook. I barely do anything with Instagram. I just choose to be ignorant. I don't read Reddit at all. And so you've got to decide, you don't have to have the same ones as me, but decide for yourself, like what are the ones that are really important and that really add value And what are the things where I'm just wasting my time? And in the digital minimalism book, Cal talks about how if you go through a digital detox, take away these basically non-essential digital mediums, and then decide on what activities you really enjoy that you want to do as replacement activities and do them, you can get your life back. Like he has testimonies of people reading 8 books in a month, or rediscovering their love of sewing, or starting a blog, or starting a business, all because they just got off Facebook,
Right.
like,
Wow.
and so again, I'm kind of weird, but I don't even own a TV. And people are like, what do you do? Well, I'm like, I swim, I play soccer, I get together with friends, I read,
You have a life.
I do things around my house, I go to church, like I live my life, and nothing's wrong with TV. I'm not like dissing it, but I'm just saying, like, you want to live your life because you want to live it, not just give your time away to people that are trying to make money off of your attention.
Absolutely. Great tips for people around overwhelm. And thank you so much. So I really want to know, how can people get a hold of you so that they can get more tips and tricks, read your books, and really maybe even talk to you about personally working with them around getting their life in order?
Yeah, exactly. So my website is reallifee.com. So that's RealLife, and then another E like Elizabeth.com. And there you'll find out about my coaching as well as my books. I have 3 books. And also, if you go on Amazon or wherever books are sold and just type in Elizabeth Grace Saunders, my 3 books will come up, and you can find out all kinds of information about time management.
Fantastic. Well, thank you, Elizabeth. This has been an awesome session, and really packed full of practical tips that people can apply right away. So thank you so much.
You're welcome. My delight.
And thank you all for being here, because these tips are for you. So without further ado, I want you to get out your notebook if you didn't already have one and you weren't already taking notes. And I want you to write down, what are the 2 or 3 things that you can take away, or even the one thing that you can take away from this podcast that you can implement for yourself right now, and that you can take action starting right away to better understand how to let go of things that you're holding on to, or how to combat that overwhelm, either in the amount of data that's coming towards you, towards adding some filters, or just getting control over the number of commitments that you have. That's your task for today. My name is Penny Zanker, and this is Take Back Time. I'll see you in the next episode.
Thank you for listening. Today's topic is another opportunity for you to put the knowledge you learned into practice. Tune in again next week for more strategies that will help you have more energy and focus to get more done in less time, so you can continue to take back time.